It's a horror show. That's painful, isn't it? It's a nightmare.
9 words. That's all it takes. 9 words written decades ago that have banned technology, thrown out world champions, and rewritten the rule book of the most expensive sport on Earth.
Once again, seeing the Ferraris pouring into turn one side by side, almost touching, really good, clean, hard racing.
And right now, Martin Brundle is pointing those 9 words directly at every single car on the 2026 grid. The driver must drive the car alone and unaided. But here's the question nobody in the paddock wants to answer out loud. What happens when the car is driving itself? And more importantly, what happens to Ferrari's billion-dollar bet on Lewis Hamilton if the entire grid is declared illegal? It started at Suzuka. Lando Norris didn't want to overtake Lewis Hamilton. He didn't choose to make the move, he didn't brake late, he didn't find an extra gear. His battery fired on its own, pushed him past, and then left him with absolutely nothing to defend. Norris was just a passenger. And Brundle, one of the most respected voices in Formula One, watched that moment and reached for the one rule that has never lost a fight in 30 years. Article 27.1. The driver must drive the car alone and unaided. But that was just the start, because the 2026 power unit isn't just a hybrid system, it's something Formula One has never seen before. The petrol engine produces roughly 400 kilowatts. The electric motor, nearly 350. That's almost a 50-50 power split, with the electric output nearly triple what the previous generation delivered. And here's where it gets dangerous. The system that used to keep batteries charged at all times, the MGU-H, has been completely removed from the 2026 rules. Gone. Which means the car can push energy out nearly twice as fast as it can take it back in. So the FIA handed control to the onboard ECU computer. Most power decisions, when to push, when to pull back, at what rate, are now preset maps, automated targets. The driver cannot override them in the moment. Think about what that means. The fastest racing drivers on Earth press the throttle to the floor, and the computer decides how much power actually reaches the wheels. Sometimes 350 kilowatts of electric boost, sometimes nothing. And the driver? He just waits. Because what happened next changed everything. Oliver Behrman's crash at Suzuka wasn't a racing incident, it was a consequence. Franco Colapinto's car was in recharging mode, traveling roughly 50 kilometers per hour slower on the same straight. Same rules, same tires, same track. 2 completely different speed classes. Behrman closed the gap so fast the physics were already locked in before he could react. He walked away, but as Brundle made clear, walking away from a 50G crash isn't proof the rules are safe. It's proof the barriers at Suzuka are well built. The Grand Prix Drivers Association had warned the FIA about exactly this scenario before the season even started. Nobody listened. Now the FIA has scheduled an emergency meeting. 6 fixes are on the table. Software patches, power curve adjustments, throttle limit cleanups. Engineering solutions for what looks like an engineering problem. But here's the twist. Brundle's argument isn't about engineering, it's about the rules themselves. Because if an automated brake balance system, one that simply saved Renault's drivers from adjusting by hand, was enough to throw an entire team out of a Grand Prix in 2019, then a power unit that pushes 350 kilowatts against the driver's direct wishes is very, very hard to defend under the same rule. You cannot patch a rules conflict with a software update, and that changes everything about what Miami really means. Now enter Leclerc. While the legal storm builds around him, Ferrari's #1 driver is laser-focused on something else entirely, something that right now matters just as much as legality: survival. Everyone back at the factory is pushing like crazy, Leclerc said after Suzuka. In Miami, we will have, like everyone else, quite a new car. It will be crucial to start on the right foot from Miami onwards. And then came the line that reveals everything about Ferrari's real position. Mercedes probably has a big engine advantage over us at the moment. But we must not forget that there are huge gains to be made in chassis development, aerodynamics, and getting the tires into the right operating window. He knows the power unit battle is lost, for now, so Ferrari is gambling everything on the chassis war at Miami. But here's what makes this revelation cut deeper. Because on the other side of that Ferrari garage, Lewis Hamilton finished 6th at Suzuka, not from lack of effort, not from strategy, but from something far more concerning. He had no confidence in the car. And Nico Rosberg, the man who spent years racing wheel-to-wheel against Hamilton, recognized the pattern immediately. This isn't a setup issue. This isn't a track-specific problem. This is the same spiral Rosberg warned about before Hamilton even drove his first lap in red. 3 layers of fallout are now colliding at once. First, inside the Ferrari garage, Leclerc is already in sync. He's reading the SF26, finding the limit, delivering podiums. Hamilton is still searching, still adapting. And when 2 drivers have the same car but completely different results, the questions stop being about the car and start being about the driver. Ferrari didn't sign Hamilton to adapt, they signed him to lead. Second, the championship picture. Mercedes is ahead. McLaren has taken a step forward. Leclerc said it plainly. This will be a championship that is won or lost through development. And with 5 weeks until Miami, every team arrives with essentially a new car. Ferrari must land their upgrade package perfectly, or the gap only grows. Third, and most dangerous of all, Max Verstappen has publicly questioned whether Formula One is still worth racing in. Fernando Alonso called it the Battery World Championship. The GPDA group chat is, by all accounts, unlike anything seen in recent memory. When the drivers themselves start asking whether they want to be here, that isn't a technical crisis. That is an identity crisis for the sport. Scenario 1. The FIA's Miami fixes work. Power delivery smooths out. Hamilton finds his rhythm. Ferrari's upgrade lands perfectly, and Leclerc and Hamilton become the most dangerous pairing on the grid. The championship becomes a war. Scenario 2. Article 27.1 gets formally challenged. One team with nothing to lose files a protest. The stewards are forced to look at 30 years of precedent, and the entire 2026 grid faces a legal reckoning that makes Renault 2019 look like a footnote. Scenario 3. The upgrades don't work. Hamilton's confidence fractures further. Ferrari pours development in 2 directions and loses ground in both. While in Woking and Brackley, they watch and wait, because the oldest rule in sport still applies in Formula One. Never interrupt your enemy while they're making a mistake. Can 9 words written decades ago bring down the most technically advanced cars ever built? Can Ferrari unlock Hamilton before the gap becomes impossible to close? And when Miami arrives, with new cars, new power, and everything on the line, will we finally see who this championship really belongs to? One thing is certain. This season was never just about who's fastest. It's about who survives. The politics, the pressure, and the rules. So tell me, do you think the 2026 cars are breaking Formula One's oldest law?